Going live. You're live. So I'm trying out this live streaming thing, and I got over 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Maybe someone will show up and comment in the sidebar. It's kind of an odd hour. It's like 2 a.m. in the morning here, Washington State. Yeah, it's kind of like this is a used couch. I got it at the Salvation Army. Actually, a friend of mine from work, he helped me deliver it to my house, and it was kind of beat up. It wasn't too bad when I got it, but when you have a lot of pets, and for somebody that's like a childless person or childless couple, we don't have any kids, so we have cats and we've had dogs. I have to say we've had a lot of cats, and it's because I've had cats since I was a small child growing up. And I've always had this kind of like wanting to be take care of an animal. My outlook on my backyard projects has been, they haven't been really, I haven't been doing very much lately because I'm taking care of my wife. She's invalid now. She can't get out of bed, so I have to prepare meals and take care of her. I'm spending a lot of time helping her out after she had a stroke, and so it's not like I have a lot of time to spend setting things up properly the way they should be set up. And you'll notice things have been done a little bit ad hoc. They haven't been done like, okay, very, very well planned out and like methodically, intricately put together and put in place to be aesthetically pleasing and promote and to look good and to look very professional. Things have just kind of been, I get an idea in my head, I get the materials I need to construct what I have in my mind, and then I just I try to put it in place. And lots of times I'm using existing materials that I have laying around already in the yard. What I've been trying to do with this place I'm living at is very difficult to do in a suburban area, because if your house doesn't look normal like everybody else's house, if you had odd things on your house like pipes instead of downspouts, and if you have like water catchment system or a big tank in your yard, or solar panels on racks or on your roof that are visible from the public, that your house is going to be like it will be non-conforming to the aesthetics of the rest of the neighborhood. So I understand there is a lot of consideration for a lot of people that would try to do something like I'm doing. Now, if you live and you don't have any neighbors around you that your house is visible to those people, then you can get away with a lot more. You could have like, wreck cars in your yard and store a lot of metal, or have animals or farm animals, or do like off-grid energy projects. You could put windmills up in your yard and big solar panel racks and all that, and it won't bother anybody because the neighbors won't see them there on your property. But if you're visibly putting things on your property that don't conform to the way the other homes look in the area, you're going to be you're going to get like letters from the county, or people will complain. Where I live at, I think people are very concerned about the way their lawns look and the way they upkeep their property, how it appears, as appearances. So that, and just not having any time, I don't have time or even the money to be able to go out and put it up, install things correctly to code on my property. Now, if somebody's just starting out, I think a lot of people are thinking, I want to live as cheaply as I can, and I want to be I want to live in a place where everybody's friendly, and I don't want to have to drive a car as least little as possible. I don't want to need to use a vehicle, and I want to be able to like grow all my own food, raise my all my own food, and reuse everything and not have to buy anything, and generate all electricity that I need, get all my clean water, and take care of my sewage and waste on my own property, and never have to leave as little as possible. I can stay where I'm at and not have to travel or leave where I'm at, to be able to be happy and survive and be comfortable and entertained. And I think most people want that. They also want like to be liked. They want to have a lot of friends, and they want other people to like them. They want to be popular, and they want to be like live as cheaply as possible and live as good as they can. So they want the best quality of food. They want the most leisure time without having to work as little as possible, and to be able to get all their electricity, all their water, all their food, and reuse as much as they can, and live and never have to leave where they're at. So that's where I'm thinking. I'm thinking like where, and part of my motivation was Hurricane Katrina. You know, I saw Hurricane Katrina happen, and I seen the results of that. I seen like, wow, this is like, you know, if this were me and I was in a situation like that, what would I have done to be prepared for that? So there was a lot going on in my mind about being prepared, about having my power go out in the middle of winter. For 2 weeks, my power went out. So I'm like thinking, you know, I got to really have to either buy a gas generator, and I don't like them because they're noisy and they stink. So I thought, well, I'll try solar, but I'll just kind of get my feet wet first with solar. I'll just try it. I'll just try a kit. You know, I'll try something really basic and simple, and experiment with that. And once I sort of get a better understanding of it, and I do all of the research, you know, get the best panel for the least amount of money, and do it as much as I can myself, and find look around and see what other people are doing. And I did that, and I thought, you know, I'll just make a video and I'll put it on YouTube of what I'm trying to do. And I never really, I don't know. It wasn't like money. The money was kind of a motivating thing. So you'll see ads. I don't know if any of you, maybe if you see ads, if you see ads on my videos, let me know. Type it in the comment. What was the ad? And because what I did now is they've demonetized this channel. I get zero. I don't get any payments at all from ads that show up on these videos on this channel. So if you do me a favor, right? If you like what I do, just do me a favor, and you see an ad on my video, type in the comment what the ad was, or email me what the ad was. I'll be interested to know that. The ads are according to your preferences. Whatever you're searching for, it's going into your cookies. It's recording on your web browsing history, and then they take that information and they put ads up according to what your preferences have been. So your ads, whatever you're seeing ads on these videos, they're not ads that I've chosen to put on these videos. They're ads that come up that whatever you've been searching for. Those ads are directed towards you and what you've looked at on the internet, what you've typed in on the internet on searches. So don't feel like you're like, how come I'm putting these at? Well, yeah, I know it sucks. You have to wait, or you have to skip them and all that. So, but I pay the $11 a month, and I get YouTube Red, which I have another channel that I use for most of my watching videos on, and I do mostly commenting, and I have other videos that I've made and I put them on that channel, because this channel was like too many people whom knew me personally where I worked at, or people in my neighborhood, and that is more. It's kind of like if people could see into your personal life, right? What would you want to show them? So it's more like that. Whereas my other channel is more like this is for family, or this is for like a hobby that's doesn't have anything at all to do with my work or what I do at my job. And I guess a lot of people are really, really concerned, and they're hyper vigilant about divulging too much of their personal life or personal philosophy, political ideas onto the internet, because that will jeopardize their career, or that will inhibit their moving forward in their job or their profession. Or maybe they're so hyper vigilant about their privacy that they are like their credibility is at stake. Okay, for every they're being analyzed, they're being the eye of Sauron. I don't know if you've seen the Lord of the Rings, that big eye that's looking. There's this eye of Sauron that's looking, right? That's analyzing, that's judging and critiquing. That dark clown that's in the back of the audience, that heckler that's analyzing, critiquing, that knows you and that you don't know them. So there's that issue about, gosh, there's all these people that know me and they're like hidden from me, and they're like in the dark, they're like in the shadows, and they're like watching me and analyzing me and judging me and looking at what I'm doing, and like criticizing, being very critical of what I'm doing. So that's in a way it's inhibiting. I mean, that inhibits your creativity, your spontaneity to make a video, because it's just me. I'm just, oh, this is a good idea. I'll just turn my camera on and I'll just make a recording of it and I'll talk about it. And I won't like get, $1,000 lighting setup. I won't get, a $500 microphone. I won't get, thousands of dollars worth of video equipment and sit down and spend hours and hours and hours editing with fade in and fade outs, with special texting and graphics, and hiring a musician to do the intro, and having like a team of, or an editor, a professional editor editing my work and all that, and doing the light, So I think there wasn't that much thinking about that in the very beginning. I wasn't thinking about, gee, I could make like thousands of dollars a month and just like sit at home and do videos. And like, that was never my intention or plan. That could happen, but I knew it wasn't going to happen, being that if you look at my playlists, I've tried to like find other people that are doing what I've done, only they've done it a lot better than I have. Like, they've spent less money, they put a better system together, they've done it more professionally. And so I was like maybe a pioneer in what I was doing, because I was trying to do like the food and the water and the solar a lot. And yeah, there's a lot of things I could have improved. I could have made sure my curtains or my blinds were clean before I made a video, so you didn't see what the cats have been doing. But so far, I got over 1,000 subscribers in this channel. But I'm on live chat here, Backyard Soul. I've been doing this for 14 minutes, which is probably too much time. But there was someone that said, "Oh, hey, let's get together. Where do you live? Let me come over to your place. I want to see your setup." And I responded back. I said, "Well, what do you want to know? I can show you a video of that. I really don't want anybody to come over to my house. I would prefer not to know to divulge my exact location to anyone I don't really know, because yeah, privacy, but not private, in a way." So, but if they wanted to know, I was more than happy to show them on camera, or explain into them in detail what they wanted to know more about the solar electric system that I was putting together. And for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to have power. And if my lights go out and it's dark, then I'll be able to have my lights on at night. That was the main concern. That's why I really got my batteries and all that, so I could have emergency power. It's a nice idea to like dream that someday you're going to have all your power and all your water and all your food taken care of for you where you live locally, that you won't need anything like to go to the grocery store. Everything, you'll be able to do everything yourself on your own property. It's a very, utopian kind of dream to have. And that was like, okay, if I'm having this like idea what utopia should be like, why not take little tiny steps towards that idea in that direction? And these videos were just those little tiny steps towards what I thought utopia should be in the world. I thought if like everybody that has a house or has a building or has land around them, they should like plant apple trees. They should grow fruit trees. They should have like raise their own food. There should be more use of the immediate natural resources around them instead of like having their power generated hundreds of miles away and brought to them. The idea of having your own, generating all your own electricity on your own property, or even in a community, a small community, and sharing a shared solar power or a wind system, this is a good idea. Not to have all these power transmission lines coming from hundreds of miles away to deliver power to your house. And right now, I'm being from California myself. We have raccoons around here. So what I did is I bought we have wild opossums too. And I like the opossums. I don't know why people don't like opossums, or they try to kill them, which is, I would never want to hurt any other animal. I would want them to, like, if an animal was in my yard that, oh, there's an animal in my yard. What can I do to make it more, to ease its discomfort? How can I keep some fresh water out for the animal? Will the animal be, if the animal is hungry, then it'll eat the apples off my apple tree that fall on the ground that have worms in them that I'm not eating, or the pears that go bad and they drop from the tree, or they'll climb the tree and eat the pears. Oh, they'll eat the raspberries off the raspberry bushes. And so it's more like now my yard I'm trying to turn it into more like a wildlife sanctuary. But maybe it's just me doing that for my own selfish emotional reasons. I'm in an office all day and I come home and it's nice to see a bird or to see another kind of critter around, which I know it's bad, because if you're feeding animals that are wild, birds or even possums or raccoons or whatever, then they're crossing the road to get to your house. And when they cross the road at night, people drive really fast and they run into animals. I see a lot of like dead squirrels, dead possums and raccoons on the side of the roads around here. What they do is people drive really early in the morning and late at night, and they drive really fast down the road, and there's a little hill, and they're going up the hill and going down the hill, and they don't stop for any animals. They'll just keep, if you're driving along and your raccoon is right in front of you, all of a sudden you're just going to keep going straight, because it's safer to do that. It's for you. You're being safe, and I understand that. Yeah, you're if you can avoid it, slow down. Maybe you're driving too fast, right, all the time. So if you're going to hit an animal, then it might be safer for you to just hit the animal. Make sure you hit it and kill it, or if you hit it, then you could carry a baseball bat in your car, or a big knife, or even better, a kennel with heavy leather gloves, If you injure an animal, or you see an injured animal on the side of the road, you can put on the leather gloves, put on your headlamp, and park your car and go over and pick the animal up with your leather gloves on, like welding gloves, or and make sure that the animal is wrapped up in like keep a blanket in your car and put it in the kennel, and then take it to an animal treatment rehabilitation place or a veterinarian if you can. I would recommend doing that. But it's kind of disappointing. I was expecting, well, I guess I'm not a very interesting person, I guess. So that's okay. Um, it's kind of interesting that there's this ability to produce immediately a video on the internet, and you don't know who's watching it. So yeah, I grew up. I was more inclined to want to fall in a creative field, more art, or either writing or art. And maybe some of you that watch my channel work with me, so you know me at where I work at and what I do at my job. And yeah, sometimes I'm not real social, right? I just want to go there. I just want to sit down. I just want to get my work done. I don't really care to be, hey, I blah blah blah, and that I'm just like at my desk and I'm sitting there, I'm working. I'm not being really all perky and happy and social like that, But so this channel, it was originally supposed to be about how I am trying as a person on this world to live more with less of a negative impact on my environment that I depend on. It's this environment we have is our life support system, and the more you use, the more material things you use, and the more demands you put on the environment for your own amusements and entertainments and whims, then you're essentially you're robbing the people of the future what they're going to use to have to survive. So if you're like somebody that's very family oriented and you're very concerned about your children and their children's children and the well-being of the people of the future, and that you're a very dedicated person to making sure that your family is taken care of, and that your kids are healthy and they have the best medical care and they go to the best schools and they have the best food, and you want your children to have this really good environment and protect them from negative things, and you want them when they grow up and they're your age for the earth to be a very a wonderful, bountiful place, a playground for them, a wonderland, a place where there's clean water, where there's lots of natural beauty and biodiversity. But in a way, you're kind of in a way you don't live that way. You live like you're just kind of trying to get as much as you can right now for yourself, and that you don't really care about what's going to happen in the future, because it's just all about you and me and what you can get now for yourself, and you're weighing the costs. You're doing a value equation in your mind, and you're making it okay. It doesn't matter. I don't really count. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, I can afford to be wasteful. I can afford to waste because it's convenient for me to waste, to throw away, or or overuse something that's may or may not be necessary. But it's just, I want to amuse myself now, so I can afford to do that, so I'll do that. But that's wrong. There's right and wrong behavior, and the right behavior is that how is that behavior affecting everyone else around me? and the people and animals in the future, people in the future too. So, do you really want a world that's more dead? I mean, there's a good philosophical arguments that say that it may be better that life dies off, because as a whole, in general, over time, there's the amount of suffering that occurs to sentience is that outweighs that suffering. Just even a small amount of suffering completely outweighs any pleasures, or all of the pleasure combined. You can kind of do a broad general outline, general overview of what life is doing and what's happening to life throughout time, and see that this is all just an accident in the universe. There was no one intending for life to emerge. There wasn't any plan to these forms that occurred. And that it is better that we not exist anymore, or the animal life doesn't exist anymore. But even the humanism, I think it's more like they want the earth to be more for humans. There's a lot of power, and there's a lot of influence happening right now in the world about making this planet into a strictly for humans, making anywhere where there's land or oceans or any kind of an environment, that environment should be specifically re-engineered for humans to have food, materials from that, and that if there's any other kind of organisms there equal to a sentient human, that's an elephant or a seal or a whale or any of all these other organisms, that these powers that be in the world today, they want all that to go away, and they just want this planet to only have humans on it. Now, we can have zoos. Once a few places maybe can have zoos, and then they want to keep the zoos around for like entertainment, like SeaWorld or one of these places. But the idea, I think there's a strong political and corporate drive towards making this world a strictly for humans, for people only. And I know a lot of you don't like that. Probably that seems unfair. It seems like that. Who are we? Who is mankind, humankind, to decide for all these other animals that we're the ones that should survive. We're the only ones that really need to thrive here. This world belongs to us specifically for humans, and that we need to really take over and like lose any places where there's a life support system. There's like, okay, we need trees because we need wood to build houses. We need forests because we need oxygen to breathe. There has to be a balance. So when we burn fossil fuels, we're burning oxygen too, and that oxygen gets depleted over time. And then our waste gases, which is CO2, that needs to be uptaked by the tissues of plants, and then they can transform the carbon dioxide into carbon material that the plant is made out of, or the tree is made out of. So we need to have this. So someone at some time, or some institution or university or government needs to do a very detailed map of the surface of the planet, every single area of land, and what organisms or what organic materials or what kinds of things are on that within that cubic meter of space. And once it's completely mapped, they can do a equation as far as how much CO2 is getting absorbed versus how much CO2 is getting produced. And they'll know precisely how much land they need to set aside for carbon reuptake. Now, there's all these pie in the sky ideas. They're going to build these machines. They're going to suck air into the machine. They're going to make big blocks of CO2 of dry ice. and then they're going to be able to bury the dry ice or push it, pump it down into the ground in old oil wells, and it's going to store CO2 in the ground and from these big machines. Well, we already have those. They're called trees, and all we need to do is just do rewild areas. Instead of having these areas and letting them be grazed by livestock, we need to prevent livestock from being on that land, so they eat every little shoot of little green growing fiber, even little trees that are trying to grow. If those trees can't grow, they're going to be eaten by the sheep or the deer or whatever. So there's the reforestation. I think that's the answer. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like me, and they're not going to like me because they're going to be like, you're going to tell me I'm going to pay more to fly in a plane, that I got to pay for a tree to get planted because I got on an airplane, I sat in a seat and I went 1,000 miles, and then I came back and I sat in a seat again and I went 1,000 miles. So I went in the air for so many thousands of miles, and each mile that I traveled in the air, the weight of my body in that plane, I consumed so much jet fuel, which produced so many pounds of CO2 in the air. You mean I have to pay to have a tree or a plant put in the ground to take up that material that I waste gas that I produced by my choices that I made and how I wanted to have leisure? And you're not going to like that. You're going to say, well, fuck, you, and I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to not have to, I don't want to have to pay for that. But hey, you know what? It's looking like it's coming to that. It's coming to that. It's coming to be where anybody that travels, they're going to have on their plane ticket or train, whatever ticket, part of that's going to be money. It's going to be taken out and used for designated areas for regrowing forests, or maybe even reintroducing plankton in oceans, or barren places in the ocean, repopulating those parts of the ocean with a marine life, putting artificial reefs in the ocean, or growing rewilding areas and growing trees back to uptake the carbon dioxide. And also all these burger places, whenever you eat cow, that cow will have to tax. They'll have to put a carbon tax on all the food, all the meat, because it takes grain, and it takes water to grow the grain. It takes land area to grow grain. And they're going to figure out, someone's going to do all this, and they're going to figure it out precisely, very mathematically on the most sophisticated computer systems. They'll map the entire surface of the planet out and find out exactly how much CO2 is getting emitted per day by usage of all the vehicles, all of the internal combustion engines, all the coal-fired power plants that are running, all the equipment that's burning fuels. They're going to precisely, exactly be able to measure all the outgassing and the intaking from carbon capture, which should and will be most likely reforestation. Now I go around and I look around and I see all this vacant land. I see all this vacant land. They go in there and on a piece of land, they cut down all the trees and they leave it vacant. Or they put a highway in and then they cut all the trees down along the highway or in the interchanges there, and there's no trees, there's no plants, there's no shrubs at all. So what we need to do is, as a society, is to figure out fast growing plants and trees that are native to the areas that they would have normally been there, and replant them and reintroduce those trees and shrubs to those areas and manage it for fire. And this is stupid. It's stupid that they spend all this money to put fires out, right? And there's no money to be spent like for a specific time when the humidity is at a specific range, temperatures at a certain range, there's no wind, and they can go in there and they can burn off the underbrush. They can burn that off when it's like mild, when the climate is mild and it's not too dry, and it's in certain seasons. And then when it's dry and hot, then the fire comes through. It'll just burn itself to the edge where where the control burn was, and it won't burn anymore. But it's stupid that all this brush and this wild lands are they're letting the brush grow, and they're letting the undergrowth get all they're not, you see, before human beings, even before the Europeans came to California, those fires always burned. There was always some fires going on in the hills. It was a normal thing. It got hot, or there was a storm, lightning hit, and it burned or it burned itself out. And even the native people that lived there used to burn the brush because they wanted to clear an area for growing or for hunting, making it easier to hunt game or whatever. So, but now it's like as soon as there's a fire, they go and they rush and they put it out, and then the underbrush grows back, and the underbrush should have been burned off, and it's not, and it keeps growing and it keeps piling up and accumulating and accumulating. Now, when there's a firestorm, everybody's there's a fire, blah blah blah. We got what are we gonna do? Blah blah blah. And it burns up. It burns really hot because there's all the dense material that's burning, and it gets really windy, and this climate change. It's getting the air temperatures rising, so there really needs to be more of an effort to take some of that money they're always using to put the fires out and use that money for back burning and brush control before things get out of hand too much. Now, these areas that people keep moving into that are just wild, that were originally wildlands, and there was probably fires there and no one cared. It just burned. And the fire was but now we have so many towns and so many people wanting to live in the countryside that if they're going to live where there's fires, then they should be prepared for that. Like if I had like money, a lot of money, and I lived in California in a dry area that was prone to fires, I would get like what I have now, a rainwater collection system on my roof. The same way I'd set it up, and I'd have like a bigger rainwater tank, and I'd get like a trash pump, a heavy duty water pump, and I'd keep that in a little steel shed. And I'd have it clear around my house, but you can't clear from embers. If you get a big windstorm and there's fire embers in that windstorm, there's nothing you can do to stop your house from catching on fire. As soon as an ember hits the side of your house and the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour, it's a dry wind. It's like having a campfire and you go and blowing on it, and the oxygen makes the fire burn hot. So the only remedy for that is, if you live in an area that's prone to fires, is get a sprinkler system on your roof and have an emergency water tank somewhere on your property, and a pump that's not connected to the power, or that has independent electrical or gas power, that you could use that and flush water on top of your house. And if you have a catchment system like I have, it would just recirculate the water through the system. You could spray your roof down. You could have your roof wet. You have a sprinkler system wetting down your roof while there's a nearby fire, and any embers that blew towards your house, they would be immediately wetted down by the water that was the sprinkler system on your roof of your house. And I'm not the only. This is not my idea. It's online. If you search for like a water curtain, they call it, or roof water or emergency fire sprinkler system on your roof of your house, and that's what I would do. I would put a sprinkler system on the roof of my house, a nice heavy duty water pump from my rainwater catchment system. So that's my idea about fire and fire prevention. This fire, and it happens in Illinois. There was a very good exhibit there at the Museum of Natural History about wildfires and the history of California, and how before settlers came and the Spaniards came, built missions and all that, it was fires that would naturally occur. Lightning would hit a side of a hill or something, and it would burn. There wasn't any big. They weren't putting it out. And then the problem with electricity, it really isn't the fault. it doesn't seem like it should be the fault of the power company that what their equipment is causing a fire. Yeah, it should be. They should be inspected carefully. All the substations and on the line should be inspected carefully to see that there's no faulty connections that are causing sparks or electrical discharge like that out into the environment. It should be contained, and yeah, obviously there should be some compensation for that. But to have to turn the power off for all these large areas, it seems a little bit. It seems unnecessary to have to do that. Now, if this is going to be a regular thing, then a lot of these people, they need to get an off-grid solar system or off-grid power setup. Now, if you're a wealthy person and you live in California, you should get like a lithium iron phosphate battery bank, or a good sized battery bank. You could put it in a shipping container and have that for backup power, and have solar charging that, or solar and wind charging your backup power station. You could do this. You could have a neighborhood association have their own power generation and still be connected to the grid. But if they're going to do that, then you should have a backup battery bank in your house. Now, nice thing about lithium ions batteries are they don't outgas. So you could keep a big lithium ion battery generator, which I'm interested in purchasing one of those. It's like a little generator. It would be like comparable to a gasoline generator in its power output, and it's a big lithium ion battery pack that's all integrated with a charge regulator and an inverter, and it has outlets for USB and a cigarette lighter jack, and it has input for MC4 connectors from a solar. It has MPP charger. All this is built in, so you just plug it in. It's plug in, ready to go. And you could keep one of those in your closet and have it always on standby. Just keep a charger on it, and then when the power goes out, you have your power system right there in your house for emergencies. You could run it for a few days for running lights lightly, or if you have solar, then you could run it continuously, but light for doing light things. And then when they turn the regular power back on, you could run your washing machine, your gas, your electric stove, and your water heater, and the big screen TV or whatever uses a lot of power that you need the grid power for. You could do that. So a lot of my mind, I think a lot about being in a situation where I'm in emergencies, where there's no power or no water too. I mean, water, people take it for granted that they have like drinking water right there where they live, that there's clean water that comes out of their sink, of their tap. And I was really on a path I was starting out small. I was doing little ways. I was like, I had a rain barrel, right, first. Then I realized, wow, this is like clean water. I could like drink this if I had to, or at least I'd have water to like flush my toilet. It was like a big thing. Wow, if you don't have water to flush your toilet and the water goes out, you're going to have like a bucket. You're going to have like, a 5-gallon bucket, and have to bury it or whatever, deal with that. But wouldn't it be nice if you had like a nice big water tank, or like a 1,000 gallons of water where you could get by for at least until the water company got the water back up and running. In the meantime, you'd still have water to do your dishes, to flush the toilet, to bathe with, take Navy shower with, or whatever. And that would be there available. And I was thinking, yeah, if this was me, if it was a Hurricane Katrina, or if it was like a water outage, if there was a big earthquake, because I'm scared to death of earthquakes. I mean, especially like where I work at, because I work in one of these big concrete the buildings where they have the cement walls. And, I'm thinking like, because I was at my other job that I had, and there was a Nisqually quake, and I was on the second floor, and I was under my desk, and I was like, the whole building was like, it was like made out of rubber. When the building was shaking, it was like the building was like going to fall down on me. And just that experience itself, it made me quit. I actually said, you know what, I don't know if I want to work here anymore. And I gave him my 2 weeks notice and tried to start my own business. And that's a whole other story. It's hard to do if you don't have enough working capital to pay your regular bills, pay your rent or your utilities and your groceries and your auto insurance and keep gas in your car. And if you don't have money to do that and you're trying to start your own business, and it's not, not advisable unless you have a rich relative that can help you, or a parent that, maybe you've inherited your house that you live in, so you don't have any rent payment, you don't have any mortgage payment, all you do is pay the taxes. Then you can afford to have a lot of time and use that time that you have and develop a skill, or develop some kind of, put that energy and focus your attention on the business and get your business going, and not have to depend upon an employer for money that you would need for your house payment to a bank or rent. So the people that don't have to pay rent or don't have to make a mortgage payment, they're in an advantage that they have their freedom to be able to use their time and focus their energy and efforts and really do something and do it good enough to be able to make a living at it and not have to depend upon a paycheck or to punch a time clock. So in a way, I'm kind of envious of that. I kind of envy people that can, they have leisure time that can do that. They have enough resources and so, I don't know. I'm waiting for someone to come in and comment, but I guess that's not going to happen. I'll watch the video later. You can comment on the video. But if you see an ad, let me know what the ad was and just type it or don't even tell me what the ad was. Just type in the comment, I saw an ad on your video, because I'm not getting any money from this. It's more like if I had time and money and I could afford to, I would go talk to a psychologist, or I'd go talk to somebody about my problems and then in a way, this is kind of an outlet for me to do that. When, you're kind of stuck, right? You live in a place where you don't really fit in to the area very well, because your interests are different from other people that you live around. Their interests are different than your interests. And you don't share the same philosophy or ideology of your life. Then you don't have a lot of friends, so it makes, this kind of an interesting, an outlet for that. You can just turn this camera on, which right now I'm using my Samsung Chromebook as a portal for making this video out here. So, but feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the projects that I've done. And I'm sure a lot of you out there are very professional and you're very good at what you do, and you could do it like 100 times better than how I could do it. Maybe you could just give me a pointer or give me some advice and say, hey, why don't you, maybe you could do it in such and such a way. It would be better instead of having all, I know it's sloppy. There's just a lot of these wires, and they're kind of not really arranged very nice. There's not raceways and tie wraps, and it's inconsistent. The type of wires you're using, and that's something that I need to do a little bit of work on. I need to really research it and really and know what's the best wire gauge and the best wire type to use, and plan things out really well and before I do it, and not just turn the camera on and do it. So, but sometimes I just get this urge to I feel like talking. There's no one here. I can't just pick up the phone and call somebody right now because it's in the middle of the morning or early in the morning. And I've been on here 50 minutes so far almost. So we'll see what happens. But I see a lot of other people making videos that are and they're videos that everybody's looking for that kind of information, and they think I'm going to be able to give them deliver the same quality and explain it as good or better than these other people have, which I have them in my playlist, those videos. If you search through my playlist, you'll find them. If you're looking for information, they've got all of the details on the best charge regulators to use, what kind of wires to use, the best inverter to use. They've done comparison studies of different inverters. They've analyzed different types of solar panels, and they rate them and they compare them, and they've tested them, and they do videos detailing those testings and they've compared them, and they've built systems that are very, very professionally done, and the camera lighting's really good, and they have like really a breakdown of details of how they've put it together. And they're doing really impressive systems where they're running their whole house on it. So, or they've grid tied it and they've done it really cheaply, and they're like making hardly any money. They're paying hardly any power bill at all, because they like went out, researched it, and compared different service providers for putting in the solar installations, and they found the best one and the best price at comparable to the power company, how much they're paying for their power. But if they're doing a grid tied system, you got to remember, if you're tying your solar to the grid, you're working with your power company. But if you're doing an off-grid system that's independent, that's not tied to the grid, then that's your system. You own it, and you're in charge of it. You're responsible for it, and you're not taking on any kind of liabilities if there's a electrical short that travels back over the wires, or electrical pulses that go over the wires that the power goes out and the lineman gets injured, or there's an issue, something happens on the power lines you're feeding your power to. You're legally responsible for that. If you have your system and you're paid somebody else to put it in place and it's been signed off, then you're not responsible. The people whoever installed your system, they're liable, and the power company has checked it off. So they're working with your installers. So there is in no way any liability there. But if you're just going off online and you're buying an off-grid inverter and you're plugging it into the wall off your solar, and you got you're thinking, oh, it'll shut it off. If there's no power over the grid, it'll shut it off, and it won't hurt anybody. But you're taking a chance, because if somebody finds out that you're using a grid tied inverter that's not signed off, your power company's going to get you. Your power company might sue you for liability issues on that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just this guy on the internet. I'm not responsible, but if you get a grid tied inverter and your power company finds out about that, you might pay a fine. They might shut your power off to your house. The other thing that you might consider is your insurance company. The people that are insuring, if you're paying a mortgage, then you have to pay insurance on your house. Now, if your insurance company finds out you have solar on your roof, and you live in an area where it snows and there's a snow load, your roof is designed to hold a certain amount of load of snow on that roof. I don't know about you, but we've had a few times in my area where we've gotten like almost 2 feet of snow, and it falls down and accumulates, and it doesn't melt, and it sits there on the roof and it accumulates, and then it gets wet and it gets heavy, and that adds up. A square foot area of snow that's 2 feet high on square feet that's wet, it's heavy. Now, if you have like 500 pounds or 750 pounds of solar panels on your roof, and you've just put them up there on your own, and you live in an area where it's going to snow, I would be really, really careful about that. That's why I don't cover my roof with solar panels. Really, I'm doing ground mount racks, which is, now you got to worry about theft, right? You got to worry about your area tweaker coming through and they need money, and so they grab them when you're not there or on you're on vacation, and they come in your yard and they steal them, right? Go and pawn them, get what they can, and then so like you got all this money laying around and it's not secure. So that's like my problem too. Is I got a roof and I don't want heavy equipment on my roof because it's not designed to carry a load with the other items on the roof. The roof was designed to carry a snow load for the house that I have in the zone that I have it in. So it's just one more thing to consider that, when you're doing this. The other thing is that you have water, right? And you have water sitting around. Is your water, is it going to produce like mosquitoes? And the other thing is if your container, like I have a big tank, it's 1,000-gallon tank, and I have it kind of in the middle of my yard. I don't have it on too near to my neighbor's place, but I kind of worry if that was full of water and it broke, that all that water would spill out on the ground and would go like run over out to could potentially run to his property and do property damage on someone else's property. So then you got a lot of water. If you're having water storage on your property and you live in a suburban area that's close to your neighbors, and there's another issue there. Well, you got mosquitoes and you got your container breaching that could cause damage. But I see a whole cottage industry in rainwater storage for fire, to put out a fire or to keep your house from burning. If you live in an area where there's a fire, or you think your house could ever catch on fire, you could have enough emergency water, because if there's a fire that's heading towards your neighborhood, then your water pressure is going to go down. You know that. If you go to turn your hose on, you think you're going to spray your house down with the water out of your hose while there's a fire moving towards your house, it won't happen because the fire department's already using the water pressure. So you're not hardly going to have any pressure to spray your house down. Now, if you have a situation like me where you have a big water tank or water tanks that are full of rainwater, and you have an independent water pump that's on your batteries that you can run off your solar, because it's in the middle of summer and it's hot and the sun's out, right? And there's fires. So there's plenty of sunlight. You can power your water pump and spray your house down, hose your house down, and prevent a fire from burning, ember from getting on your house, landing on your house, and then burning your house up. You could keep your house wet enough to where the ember will hit and it won't start a fire on your house. So that's the other thing. The other thing is you're flushing your toilet. If your water goes out and there's no water pressure or no water where you're living, but you still have your toilet, right? So you still need to flush your toilet. So, but I guess you could just go to Home Depot and get like a couple, 5-gallon buckets and leave those around. Use those with sawdust, right? Have a thing like of pet for sawdust for pets or whatever. Have a bag of that stuff for emergency toilet. But in most cases, there's going to be an evacuation order, and you're going to have to collect all your stuff that you don't want to get burned up and leave your house, which sucks. It really sucks. I'm glad I don't live in California, but I feel sorry for people that do that, having to evacuate. Not only do you have all these homeless people, because it's a nice place to, if you have to live outdoors and you don't have shelter, then you might as well go to a place where it's warm most of the time and you can stay moderately comfortable outside if you have no home. So it doesn't surprise me that there's all these towns and places in back east or in northeast or northwest that are cold and wet and rainy, and these people don't have anywhere to live. They could just go down south and pitch a tent on the street or live in a camper on the side of the road. And now you got all these homeless people. Now all these other people are homeless because they have to evacuate where they're at. So it's like, sucks. And then the power's going out intermittently. Oh God. And I moved out of California in 1989 and went to Oregon. And I told people, if people knew you from California, they didn't like you. You know, it's like, why go back to California? You know, you're taking our jobs. You're. And I think a lot of the resentment too is that people in California would like sell their house. It was worth a lot of money, and then they'd move into these other places, and they could buy up big houses and land for cheap, and still have lots of money to live off of from their on the sale of their home in California, because they made all this pile. They made a pile of money on their shack in Malibu, and now they have a big ranch in Oregon. Because they inherited their house from their parents, who inherited it from their grandparents, who inherited from their great grandparents. So they had all this accumulated wealth in land that was inherited, and then they sold it in California, and they moved and bought a big ranch. So a lot of people, like the people that are already there, didn't like that people were moving in that could afford or driving up the property values, you know. So wow, it's been an hour. I'm gonna go. So anybody that's come by, thanks for stopping by and watching. And I'll do a video now and then. I'm just like, my videos, my last video is just show you out there that this is the system I built, and it's still working. I'm still using it when I can, but it's still working. And I need to. And there's other projects that I have that are in limbo that I've stopped, that are, or that have failed, like the red wiggler worm farm failed because of rats. The rats got in there and ate them all. It was because I had a seedling starting pad that was like for keeping plants, seedlings warm. It's this flat plastic heating element that will that you put down. You put your potted plants or your seedlings on there. It will warm them up. And I put one of those in my worm bin, and the rats got in there in the middle of winter and burrowed in through all the compost. They ate every single worm. And I took the worms. I took what I had left in there, and I put it on my fruit orchard on the ground, and I put some cardboard over it. And then sometimes I'll take my food scraps and I'll put them under the cardboard, and I'll put rocks on top of them. And the worms, there are a few red wigglers left. There's a few of them that survive, so they're in there. And I guess they're going to be okay over the winter, because the ground will be a little warmer than the air, so it'll work out. Maybe I'll get my worms back one day, and I'll put them back in a bin, collect them again, because they'll stay in the yard if there's food for them to eat, and they're warm enough. They have moisture in the ground, so they're anyhow. People that have watched me, subscribed to me. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for the encouragement, and everything. And I hope maybe you'll see me in the future when I make other videos.